Well, here we are, video 8. Now it all comes together. You are now 90% there. The final fence, the final hurdle is in your stride. And this final 10% is going to be life-changing. You're now going to learn when to place your trades. You'll nail down the required mindset, and you will also understand the concepts of the box and what's in it. So without further delay, let's get on to wrapping all this up for you. When to trade. When do you trade? When do you actually take that trade? Well, you can only trade, if you're trading the market maker's business model, you can only trade when you have a sense of knowing. Now the sense of knowing is, comes to when you're watching the box, you're watching manipulation, you're watching how the market comes out, and you're not seeing a market pattern as such, but you're suddenly realising a sense of knowing, I can see the game plan. I can see how the market maker is going to make money from this accumulation area. I can see that. So at that point, you are able to take a trade, not based on a chart pattern, but on that sense of knowing. So where does the sense of knowing come from? Where does it actually come out of you from? Again, we come back to our form versus content. If we think about our form, we're just looking at the chart surface, and that could match exactly the same form that we saw a week ago, or something, 2 days ago, or yesterday we could see. But by looking at the content, we remain connected. And so we look at the content, we're working out what's going on behind, and this will give us gradually as things goes on, as your training becomes more, as your skill becomes more, you will just look at a market and see, right, I know what phase that market's in, and if it's in that phase now, I know the next phase it's going to go to. I'll look for this bit of manipulation period. Okay, I now see that. Okay, right, got the story, and now you're going to enter the trade, and now you're going to make money by default. So that sense of knowing is when you start to recognise not the form, you recognise the content, and that's how you get that sense of knowing on there. So that now brings us on to beliefs, which is really the whole sort of everything's encountered into beliefs, because if you think about this, you can't do anything until you have a belief. Now, I want to say anything at all, I'll clarify that a little bit for you in a moment, but basically we're driven by beliefs. We're driven, you're watching these DVDs because you believe that as a result of these DVDs you can make money in the market, and that's true. That's true. It's going to happen. But you've got to have that belief before you can progress and go forward. You have to have that belief before you actually could buy these DVDs, for example. Successful trading. Now, successful trading is about recognising the content of the many different forms the trading chart may take. Patterns are always going to vary. The shape of the chart is always going to vary. And to try and trade these is like the proverbial dog trying to chase its tail. The content of the market maker's business model will always be the same. The content of stock taking or running will always have the same desired outcome. This is exactly the same activity each and every time. The form or patterns of the stock taking will not always be the same. Stick with the content and you will always understand the stock taking, and subsequently you will understand the forthcoming market move and from where that move is going to start. We're going to talk about paper boats. Now, my belief is that the market, when we look at the market as a general whole, all the prices and everything else that's going on in the market, is an ever-shifting ocean of what? Beliefs. That's what I believe. Ever-shifting ocean of beliefs, not prices. In other words, we've got this constantly ever-shifting ocean of people buying and selling, people believing a market is going to go up or the market is going to go down. And when we're looking at that, we've got to accept the fact that something's going to be influencing that, as it were. Now, the story I'd like to sort of bring this in or get this into your mind with is I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine that you're looking out at a lake and you can see lots of little paper boats. And in these paper boats, each one of these paper boats, thousands of them out there, are little individual traders sitting in these paper boats. And what we see is that the breeze is gently blowing around, as it were, and as you observe the breeze coming in, and the only way you can see the breeze, of course, is by the boats, how they move off, and you notice how that one or two of them may break away and then the rest start to follow off, and then the breeze changes and then they come back around. That's the image I want you to have in your mind about how beliefs are manipulated. How those boats literally are being blown around by the wind, and the market makers, being the wind, wherever they move the boats, are manipulating the minds of the traders inside the boats. Of course, if they weren't inside the boats and they were out at the vantage point, then they could see down onto that. But you gradually keep that in your mind. The wind, the market makes the wind, and that's how the market is being pushed around and believing. And that's where you end up, the 95%, the masses, as it were. Okay, so the dependent mind. Now, the dependent mind is because if you imagine all these little traders sitting inside these boats, they're dependent on one another. They're watching one another. They see their mate's boat go off, or their fellow trader boats, and they see them all going this way, and of course they want to join in, they want to go. They must be right, because that's where all the boats are going. And so you have this, the dependent mind is watching the chart. If you're watching the form of the chart, you're becoming dependent upon the other beliefs around all the outside traders around. So you're becoming dependent upon what the other traders are doing. You're becoming dependent on the form the chart is taking. You're being drawn in to the paper boat scenario that's moving around, whereas really the market makers are controlling this by angling the direction of the wind where they're going to move the boats. I hope that story sort of, I hadn't thought about it too much, but I think that story is a pretty good one for thinking about how the boats can be moved around by the wind, and the dependent mind being each boat depending on the other, or thinking about what the other boats are doing. Okay, now what I want you to do is to take a different perspective of this. I don't want you to be in the boats with these people. I don't want you to be one of these. I want you to take a different perspective of a general against the foot soldier. And I want you to again think of an image. You're a general, okay, and you're on the top of the hill here. There's you up there, and you're looking down here, and here's the battle raging away. All the soldiers are fighting up down here, and everything's going on. You've got different armies attacking in, and all this all there, and you're right up here, nice and safe in there. What's the job of the general? The job of the general is to look down on here and observe what's going on. Now, if he stays up here, he can observe what's going on. He can see if there's going to be a counter-attack. He can see if these soldiers are going to be outflanked. He can observe all this information up here. Now, what I'm teaching you to do is to be the general. I want you to be up here and look at this and see all the things, the accumulation, the manipulation, and the profit release start to unfold. But let me explain to you what happens for most traders when they start off. A lot of traders will start off in this position. They're up on top of the hill here, and they can take a dispassionate view of what's going on in front of them, and they're looking on their charts. And what happens is, the very moment that they take the trade, they start to descend, and they move lower down the hill. And with each successive move lower, they are able to see less and less of what's going on down here, until eventually what you end up with is the general is right down here with his men. And now, once he's down here, he cannot see. He's completely blind. He cannot see if there is a flank attack. He cannot see if there's another opposing force coming in. He cannot see if reinforcements are coming in as he's asked. So he is now in a great deal of trouble down here, and the other general sitting up on here can now see this general down here, knows that he's got him. This guy up here has got him, because now the general's down, he's in with the foot soldiers, he's in with the little boats, he's all around there. And this is what you must guard against, because this is looking at the form of the market. Okay, this is looking at the chart, this is staring at the front. When you're down here, stuck in here with all these others, you are looking at the form the chart is taking in front of you. You need to get away from this area as quickly as possible, climb back up here and get back up on the top here and take the perspective, looking down on the general, looking over what's going on, and you're simply trying to observe accumulation, manipulation, profit release. You want the profit release so you can make money, and the only way you'll make money is by staying up here and observing the market maker's business model, which is going on down here. If you descend down the hill, get into there, you're going to be chart watching, and you're going to get yourself into trouble very, very quickly. It's story time. A beautiful blonde, a house in the distance, big and brown, 3 dishes, falling asleep and waking up, porridge. So, did you get the contents of the story? When did you understand the story was about Goldilocks and the 3 bears? This is how you trade the market maker's business model. First, you're trained in recognising the model in its entirety. Next, you move on to recognising the individual phases, which then provide you with correct and accurate timing for each and every trade that you take. You are literally staying on top of the hill with a general in the ideal position to be able to clearly observe the content playing out for each and every market move. Completed accumulation. I'm often asked, when will accumulation be complete? In other words, when will the market makers be ready to make their move? If you ever think about what the accumulation actually is, and subsequently understand that it's about accumulating that which you can dispose of at a later date for profit, you'll be automatically provided with your answer, which is accumulation will be completed when the market makers have accumulated that which they can be confident of distributing into a profit release phase at a later time. What this boils down to is that accumulation cannot be measured in terms of time. That is to say, we cannot say accumulation will be completed within an hour. What might take 1 hour one day might only take 5 minutes as the result of successful stop running in another day. Again, stick with the content of the chart rather than the form it is taking. I did say I'd be mentioning form and content a lot, didn't I? Now, the acquired mindset is such an important thing, because people say, well, you got to keep positive and all this sort of stuff, and you know, you got to switch your emotions off and turn your mind off to all this sort of stuff. And actually, that's not the case. What we need to do, because as market maker traders, in other words, we're trading the accumulation, manipulation, profit release. We're trading those three. We're not trading those three phases, but we're trading that model, the market maker's model of the market. What we need to do is to ignore the live price. Now, that may seem like a contradiction, and to I suppose it is a little bit, because you know, you're looking at the live price, and the live price is the last price that's on the chart. You can see it's flicking around. You know, in our case, it's a blue line. We're flicking around, and we can see that live price constantly changing on there. Now, a lot of traders will become focused in. They'll be drawn into the live price. They'll be watching this flicking around, especially if they've entered the market and the stop losses down here, say, you know, and the live price is flicking there and flicking this and flicking this, so that the live price becomes like almost like an emotional barometer for the trader. As he gets a little bit closer to his stop, he feels a little bit more tense, and it goes away. He feels a little bit more relief, and so becomes sucked in to this emotional contact on this live price. Is why we actually have one click button in PAT software actually to turn that off, so you can just look at what really matters. But you do need it sometimes, obviously, to look at your trades. But generally, we need to be ignoring the live price. Certainly on a mental level, we need to be ignoring the live price. And the second thing is we need to become detached from the facade. This is such an important thing, because when you're looking at a chart, which we now know, we've got the facade here, which is the front edge, which is the candle, the shapes, and all the things that you're looking at there. If you're focusing on this here, you're not focusing on this here. We want to focus on the market maker's business model behind what's going on, what stage are they in? Are they in accumulation phase? Are they in a manipulation phase? Are they in a profit release phase? That's what we need to know. And where are they going? So if they're in manipulation, you know, when is that profit release phase going to come? If they're in accumulation, when is the manipulation going to start? How can we see that? How can we follow that through? So if we're stuck on the facade here, we're not going to see any of this, the real stuff that's going on behind. So whilst we look at the facade, we see the facade, we are always asking the question, what's behind here? We're not becoming anchored into this. We detach ourselves from the facade and we focus on the bit behind. Now, I've got down here connected to the box. What do I mean by that? Well, you remember, should have actually drawn a little box in there, shouldn't I, on that? You remember our little accumulation area, which I said to you, which a lot of people will call a congestion area, which is wrong. This is an accumulation area, and this is our box. Remember, I said when I refer to the box, you'll remember about that. Connected to the box. Why do I want you to stay connected to the box? Or why should you stay connected to the box? Well, remember that everything starts from the box. All the accumulation starts. If the market makers are going to move this market higher, they will be accumulating buys in this area. If the market makers are going to take the market lower, they will be accumulating sell orders in this area here. So by keeping ourselves connected as to what was connected to the box, we maintain a connection with their first phase. Now, so in other words, we see the market going off in a certain direction, which may be in the manipulation stage when it goes straight into manipulation. By keeping ourselves focused on the box, we can be always asking the question, what was in the box? The subsequent activity that comes out of here needs to answer the question, what was in the box? Because remember this, once we know the contents of the box, we make money exactly the same way that the market makers make money. We make money by default. So our only job as a trader, when you're trading these three phases, accumulation, manipulation, profit release, when you're trading the market maker's business model, your only concern is what is in the box. And when you think about that, it's such a powerful thing for you as a trader to understand. If you can just focus all your energy on working out what is in this box, accumulation of buys or accumulation of sells. Accumulation of buys, we know it's default move up. Accumulation of sells, default move down. Can you imagine the power that gives you as a trader, that you've got this singular point of focus to work out what is there. So we stay connected to the box. Okay. Now, how do you stay connected to the box? Very important. So you stay connected by asking questions. Ask questions. How is money going to be made? By looking at the box and asking yourself that question, how is money going to be made? Not by you. Remember this, not by you. You don't come into this. How is money going to be made? How is the market maker going to make money from this period here? How is he going to do that? By asking that question, you will be keeping yourself connected into this box in here. Another question to ask is, what would the market maker not want to happen? Think about that. What would the market makers not want to happen? Clearly, they'd not want the market to go against their position on here. So they'll be guarded that beliefs aren't created in that opposing direction. An example, supposing they've been accumulating buy orders, ready in anticipation for the market to be moved up, and they will sell into that rise and release their profits. What they don't want to do is they don't want to create beliefs. They do at a certain point, obviously through the manipulation process, they want to create negative sort of oscillating beliefs, if you like, so they can accumulate. But once that's sort of set, they certainly don't want through this period to create beliefs in the market might be going down, because that will not encourage people to buy. So they don't want to do anything in there that's going to challenge their ultimate outcome destination. So ask the question, what would the market makers not want to happen? And observe what that might look like on a chart. Think about that. How would that action look like on a chart, what they might not want to do? So by asking those two questions, you can keep yourself connected right into the box. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is learning how to recognize this. How do you recognize these things that you want to see, these phases that you want to look at? How to remain connected. Now, remaining connected to the market is initially not easy, because everything about the market is visually represented to us in the form of a pattern or shape on a chart. But looking at the form the chart is taking, the pattern of the charts, we're disconnected from the true content of the market. And yet at the same time, we're only faced with this facade to work with. For example, we cannot actually display the true content in the form of a pattern or shape. We can only work with that which we have. We need a method to keep our minds off the form and onto the content. Now, over the years, I've come up with what I consider to be two vital questions to keep in mind when looking at any financial market. The first question is, how is money going to be made? In other words, how are the market makers going to make money from what I'm observing before me? The second question is, what would the market makers absolutely not want to happen? And the first question keeps my mind focused on looking at the content of the chart rather than the form it is taking. I'm looking to see how that content will tell me what's in the box. Is it buy or sell orders? By asking the second question, I can observe when the market makers would not want the market to go, or where the market makers would not want the market to go. For example, if the market makers have been accumulating buy orders, ultimately the market will be going up. If the market started to move down because of outside selling pressure, the market makers would want to stop this occurring. To do this, we might see something like a swift move away, say, from an area that the market makers know would likely prompt the developing of beliefs in a different direction to the one they had planned. A sense of knowing. Now, at some point, of course, you have to place the trade. You have to make that call as to which way the market is going to go and when. Now, if you're looking at the form the chart is taking, or a pattern, you'll likely be looking for an individual time or bar to present you with some form of signal. This is the way that 95% of traders will trade, and of course, as we already know, the trading of forms and patterns and bars is fundamentally flawed at a most basic level. The answer to this is that you trade when you have that sense of knowing, and the sense of knowing that says you are at a given point in time, yes, this is it, I understand, I know what I have to do. You do not look for that sense of knowing in the form of a chart, the form the chart is taking. You look for it in recognizing the content. Remember back to where we discussed recognizing the form of a circle. If we systematically remove parts of these circle illustrations, we would get to the point where we would not be able to recognise them as circles anymore. We would have basically lost our sense of knowing. If then we added a few parts of the circle illustrations back in, our minds would again start to recognise them as circles. And what this translates to you is, as a trader, is that the moment of placing your trade should not only be at the would only be at the point where you recognise the circle, when you recognise the story, when you recognise the true content of what you're looking at. If you enter any other time before this without this sense of knowing, then you're almost certainly being drawn into the market by market makers' manipulation tactics. Section summary. This business is not about you as a trader. This is the market maker's business and you are interacting with it. Contrary to popular belief, you only need a small amount of information to actually trade successfully. You only need to know the contents of the box. What are the market makers accumulating? Is it buy orders or is it sell orders? You are in effect going to be mirroring the market makers trading. The last 5% of this $10,000 a day trader training is waiting for you in the last video, which is coming up next, video 9. This is it. This is the end, but also the beginning of a secure financial future. I'm excited for you. Why? Because what you're learning here changed my life in remarkable ways, and it will do the same for you.